This is the last pure athlete, Jordan Grace, and you're listening to Damage 365 Radio.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank our sponsors, of course, the Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore, Esposito's Pizza and Pasta, and, of course, the Keyport Online Print Shop. At this time, we'd like to welcome in our guest, ROH star Kelly Klein. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, we've been getting a lot of requests, which I'm sure you've seen on your Facebook page with the people tagging you and things like that, of they want us to bring you into a convention here in the Northeast.
Yes, I've heard rumors of that.
Rumors. And I did hang out with a couple of friends of yours, Team INS, Caitlin Diamond and Casey Spinelli.
Yes.
Just an adventure. I'm gonna say
yes,
a very interesting weekend.
That's a good way to describe it.
But they kept me on my toes the whole weekend. Very outgoing, a lot of fun, a lot of energy, and
I was gonna say a lot of energy.
They left a lasting impression on Lanny Poffo and Mr. Tony Schiavone.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
So
they tend to do that.
Now, how did Kelly Klein? How did you get into wrestling? What made you decide this is what I want to do?
Well, I grew up around not wrestling, incidentally.
Mm-hmm.
But I did grow up around amateur wrestling, high school wrestling. So that was, to me, that was what wrestling was. And then I grew up as an athlete, particularly playing and coaching softball.
Mm-hmm.
And the other side was that I grew up heavily involved in music and theater and performance. And I even went on to go to college for that, and after I had completed a specialized certificate program in high school for musical theater. So that was kind of me in a nutshell. And when I went to college, I went to school, actually at the time when I was looking at schools, it was basically deciding, do I want to go to school to play softball, because that would be a certain list of schools that I would be looking at, and then I would, just pick a major like psychology or business or something just to, get a degree, or do I want to go to school for musical theater, in which case that would be a different list of top programs, but that wouldn't be somewhere that I would go to necessarily play softball.
Right.
So I really had to choose. That was one of many times in my life I had to kind of choose between the two. I ended up going to school for musical theater, and I did get to play softball while I was at school, but it just wasn't my focus. But I was in a local Cincinnati rock band with some friends, and I was the lead vocals, and I did a little bit of composing and percussion and keyboards and things like that. And I was also waitressing, so I invited people that I worked with to come see my band. And one of the other servers said, well, I will come see your band if you get your band to come see me wrestle. So I thought, okay, well, what the heck? It was not too far from where I lived. So I got my guitarist and then my best friend to go to this independent wrestling event. And it happened to be Heartland Wrestling Association, which in the early 2000s was a developmental territory for WWE.
Okay.
And it's kind of, it is a significant part of wrestling history in a lot of ways. But I had no idea about any of that, so I walk into this independent wrestling show totally blind, not knowing what this is. And before that show was even halfway over, I was trying to find out, how do I get in that ring? How do I learn how to be a wrestler? So I never thought, I want to come back and watch a show. I want to come be a fan. It was immediately, okay, who do I talk to? And it took a few months before I finally was able to kind of get the right information and get started training. But it was, I mean, within a few months, I was getting in the ring and I started training, and I never really looked back.
Who now? Did you go to a school, or what was like? Who trained you, and like was it?
I started out at Heartland Wrestling Association, and just with a lot of the staff there, and then I trained for a little bit with Jimmy Wang Yang, and then more recently, and probably most significantly, the last about 3 years, I started training with Les Thatcher, as well as BJ Whitmer and Tarek Kuska, and training with Les really was a key part of me in the last few years making some huge strides and starting to really achieve a lot more and become just much more successful as I learned more and was able to kind of break through some plateaus as an athlete and as a wrestler and performer.
Now, when you first started training and things like that, did you watch a lot of film, and was there anybody in particular that you found fascinating that you might have molded yourself after?
I did watch a lot because I was playing catch up and I was trying to learn all the history. I was watching all the old DVDs, that people had grown up and watched the WrestleManias and the SummerSlams and the Monday Night Wars, and I hadn't watched any of that. So I actually, sometimes I talk to people and they think, "Oh, you're too young, you didn't see this stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, I did, because I, was studying it." So I didn't just watch what would have been, what was on TV. I was like, getting a hold of what I could and watching it. So what really initially stood out to me and still kind of stands out to me is because of my background growing up around Greco-Roman style wrestling. So some of my favorites are like the Dean Malenkos and the Guerreros and Chris Benoit, William Regal, and in particular a lot of the more technical wrestlers. But I do really love and appreciate obviously the other aspect, the entertainment and the aesthetic aspect of wrestling.
Right.
So, I'm not discounting the importance of all of that, because that is also part of what drew me to wrestling. But as far as the sort of technique, the more kind of grappling and technical style wrestlers are what always kind of interested me the most.
Okay. I mean, you named some technical monsters that I mean, that's setting the bar really high for yourself. I mean, did you feel you maybe put a little bit too much pressure on yourself?
No, because if you don't set the bar high, then you're kind of creating your own glass ceiling. And I really believe that people put limitations on themselves almost more than anything else. That's often one of the biggest obstacles, and I even know from my own experience that there were times when I was my own biggest obstacle, where I would just already decide that I wasn't ready or wasn't good enough or couldn't do something, so I wouldn't go try it. And I held myself back. But when you hold that bar high and you keep trying to push toward it, then you do make progress, and you don't get to where, like, okay, I've accomplished this and this is it. You just keep pushing, like, no, there's more. And now I always tell people there's a couple things that are kind of like some of my favorite mottos is control your own controllables, and that's something that's really important to me. That is just you have to take charge of what you can accomplish and what you can control, and not really worry about kind of what other people think, because I know that I believed in a lot of things that just weren't. They were things that people told me about, why I should or shouldn't make it or accomplish certain things. But if I believed it and gave up, then I wouldn't be where I was now or where I am now, because I would have just thought, okay, well, there's no point in trying because I missed my window. And then another huge thing that is really, I think, relevant to just this idea of like setting that bar high and putting yourself out there is if you don't ask the question, the answer is always no.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't go try out, then you have no opportunity. But if you go and you try, then at least there's a chance, and that's the only way that there is a chance really is when you attempt it, and you're willing to fail, and that's where you set that bar high, because you may fail, you may fall short sometimes, but you can try again, and you'll still progress somehow, no matter what.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Now, where have you, internationally, have you been anywhere?
I just recently was traveling with UCW in the Maritimes in Nova Scotia, mm-hmm. and I worked with a young woman named Madison Miles who, take note, she is going to be somebody if she decides to stay with wrestling, and if she doesn't, then she's going to accomplish great things in whatever she decides to do. But she's young, hungry, has just a great attitude. She's got a great support system, which is huge. So that was actually my first international experience. Before that, I had really just stayed in the United States and kind of focused on the last couple of years on training, and then getting started with Ring of Honor and everything.
Okay. Now, do you have goals wise? Is there places that you want to travel to wrestle outside the United States?
I want to go everywhere, because every region sort of has kind of a different history and sort of different styles and philosophies and techniques. There are always things that kind of stay true across the board, but there are these little differences that I really want to experience and learn about, and just broaden my own scope. And that's also why, like, I do training in boxing, and I try to study just a lot of different disciplines, because I feel like that can be brought together and brought into professional wrestling, and it can help inform some of just my own approach and my physicality and my technique and things like that.
Okay, now, in your opinion, considering, I guess, years-wise, you're still young in the business, do you consider yourself a wrestler, an entertainer, or both?
It's both. It has to be both, in my opinion, because I think that different people have different maybe balances or kind of a different harmony of the different aspects, where some people may have a lot more of the entertainment aspect, but if you just have to have that kind of harmony, where if you are really, really strong in the entertainment side, that can make up for a lot. If you are strong in everything, then great, and there are definitely people that are strong in everything, but I think just for every individual, there's going to be a different ratio. But for it to be professional wrestling, it has to have some of everything. Otherwise, it's otherwise it's the things that to me were two different worlds that both that I was attracted to in wrestling were the athletics or the theater and entertainment. And what brought me to wrestling was that I saw that there was both in there. But I don't think everybody should be the same ratio, because that's why there are different. You've got the technical wrestling, and that's interesting when